will pivot on to that game now. Obviously a huge game this weekend, the 101st test between the Springboks and the All Blacks, Rugby Championship round 6. While the championship may be wrapped up, this does feel like a big game for both sides. This is in Robina Stadium, or the Cbus Super Stadium, whatever you want to call it. I don't know, it seems to have 2 names there. This is on Saturday evening local time at 8 p.m. and 11 a.m. in UK and Irish time, morning kickoff for us. It's going to be the very last game of the championship. It's going to be refereed by Matthew Carley, who took the Oz game last weekend, and then Damon Murphy and Jordan Ray on the sidelines, with Brett Cronin in the TMO, all Aussies. I mean, this one, obviously from a Springbok point of view, this is to avoid 4 consecutive defeats.
Indeed, which is absolutely not good in their books at all. World champions is a little bit of egg on face if you go. No, I mean, listen, if a rugby championship, 2 and 4.
2 and 4 is a rough record as well. But I mean, if they go 4 defeats in a row, they would be. What would they be on the season? They had the win against Georgia, and South Africa A match was not capped, so they would just be 3 and 1 and 3 and 4, 5 and 4 on the season.
5 and 4. Yeah, it's not a great season. Really.
Close to that 500 rating. I mean, it definitely feels like they could arrest some of the negativity that's creeping around the squad with a big win here, and I think they'll know that they're well capable of doing it.
Yeah, well, they'll be encouraged by their showing last week for lots of it, as we were saying just then. They really did manage to get a lot of what they want to do right, but it's making a count on the scoreboard for them that's going to be the biggest task. And for the All Blacks, the flip side is, can they go the whole hog and manage a Grand Slam? They are unbeaten as it stands in 2021. It's been a perfect year for them, and if they manage this, then a rugby championship Grand Slam, which is just 6 tremendously difficult games. Very, very difficult task.
It doesn't get talked about enough. I remember I read a couple of pieces on this in the week, just talking about why don't Sanzar bill it as such? I mean, the Grand Slam in the Six Nations is such a tremendous big deal. A Grand Slam decider is a huge thing, and teams that win Grand Slams go down in history.
True.
I mean, the All Blacks, if they winning a Grand Slam in this, 6 consecutive wins against 3 of the top sides in World Rugby. It is a tougher task, no question, than doing it in the Six Nations. It's an incredible achievement. And yet, I know the All Blacks have done it in the last decade, probably a few times, but I can't think off the top of my head how many times they've done it, because it just doesn't get noticed. It's not as you win the Rugby Championship or you don't. They don't even take note of Grand Slams, despite how uniquely awesome an achievement
it is. It's a very difficult thing, and even more so if some team other than the All Blacks does it, because that's
never
going to
happen. That's never going to happen.
But it's impressive for the All Blacks too, and they will be shooting for it this week, and they'll be confident because they know they got a lot wrong last week. Conversely, and they'll be looking to correct a few things that are correctable.
It's a great place to be in, isn't it? When you've got things to work on, and you've got areas to improve on, and yet you're coming off the win. You still got that inner belief. You've got none of that confidence really dented, and yet you still know that there are areas you need to improve on.
You were not sharp in all
place
areas.
to be.
100%. No one's disputing that the All Blacks are in a great place right now, as they're already champions going into it. So just the current record, we listed it last week, but now I think they have of the 100 games played now, it's 60 and 36 with 4 draws. So that was the All Blacks' 60th win over the Springboks last week, and they'll be shooting for 61 now.
Very good, very good. Yeah, very, very impressive stuff from the All Blacks last week, but impressive again from the Springboks. We do have the 2 squads for this game.
We do. Announced, been named
as a blessing as it is. And we're gonna start with the home side, the allegedly home side, which is the Springboks.
Yes.
They have a couple of interesting things. They've moved Trevor Nyakanye from loosehead to tight and brought Oxen Che back in.
He's there with Mbanambi in the front row. I mean, it's one of their weaker combinations.
It is. I don't know about statistics, but my eyes are telling me this year, Oxen Che, Bongi Mbanambi, Trevor Nyakanye is what they've gone for as a front row unit. That to me is their weakest scrummaging unit. I think Nyakanye is a much better loose head scrummager than a tight head scrummager, and I think Oxen Che is their weakest scrummager, full stop, by far, in the whole squad. I mean, he's been turned inside and out a few times this year. I don't.
They'll be hoping to kind of lock that down. I think the motivation behind their front row selection all year, and it goes back to the Georgia game when they first sprung this
is to do the bench thing.
Marks kits off, cock off the bench, and to be fair, it worked wonders last week. They were demolishing scrums in that second half, and it was very, very powerful off the bench. So I think they're looking for similar impact, but they will be hoping that certainly Onyekanye can lock down from tight.
Yeah, it's just less likely. It's less likely that, like, I think that part of the reason they did so well last week was that they got on top of the scrum, and Oxenche and Trevor Onyekanye, Joe Moody and Nepo Lalala isn't the strongest combination from the All Blacks, but I'd be surprised now to see the Boks get on top of them with that combination. Hopefully I get proved wrong. They obviously have a lot of faith in Oxenche, and he's dynamic in the loose. For a Springbok loose head, he's not doing enough at the scrum time for me at the moment. But they do have Etzebeth and Diager. They're two stalwarts sitting in at lock.
Team, actually,
Sia, Khaleesi, Quagga Smith, Dwayne Vermeulen in the back row. No changes there. Faf and Pollard, trusted.
Diam, likewise.
Yeah, they trust their guys to get it done. And Mapimpi and Kosi and Vili Leroux make up the back three in the absence of Colby.
That's right. Then on the bench, as we said, Marks, Kitsoff and Koch are in there covering the front row. Mostert is covering the lock. Visa is in this week because Van Staden was forced out due to injury. A shame, because he was awesome, marauding off the bench last week. But Visa has been playing very well, and he was frozen out last week because of a hearing issue and all this. He wasn't being able to clear it in time to be named, so he comes back in. And then it's the 5-3 split again. We have two Yankeeses, Herschel and Elton on the bench with Frans Steen. So a very similar team to what played last week.
Yeah, and that backline bench is imperfect again. We'll hope to see improvements in terms of their use of it.
I wonder if we will use Elton at all. I mean, maybe if the game's already over and they're 2 scores down, they'll throw Elton in. But
and for better or for worse,
based on last week's showing with Pollard doing pretty much the full 80, I think.
Personally, I mean, I know Willemse missed that one kick, but him and Reinach, for me, it's a mystery why they haven't been involved in these 2 games. I think there's a decent case to be made that Reinach has been the best 9 in the test team this year, and Willemse has been really, really impactful off the bench in every single game, so it seems weird to me that they're not going to use him. And by contrast, the All Blacks have brought in Richie Mo'unga just to look at their team. They've got Moody, Taylor and Leolala in the front row, as we mentioned. Retallick and Scott Barrett still in at the locks. Kirioani, Artie Sevilla and Luke Jacobson still trusted with that back row job. Interestingly enough,
Jacobson didn't make kickoff last week, though. Obviously he was forced out. Blackadder came in, so hopefully this time we will see him there.
And Blackadder, explosive impact off the bench himself, and he will come in like he's been one of the players of the season this year.
One of the finds of the season in an already decent back row.
And Brad Weber is trusted at 9. Obviously they had some issues with ruck clearance, getting him in for the quick passing. Hopefully he's more of an Aaron Smith substitute than TJ. TJ is kind of fast becoming just that bench man for them. He definitely changes. He adds extra kgs from a 9 point of view. He can get breakdown steals when the game gets broken up. He can make running plays and all kinds of things in the last quarter, but he's not quite giving them the service they need as far as his passing game, just the crispness of it from the beginning. And when the Bok defence is at its hungriest and most energetic, you need every little inch that you can get. And they're hoping that Brad Weber can give them that from 9. Obviously Aaron Smith, just a huge loss. He'll be kicking out in domestic footy, as he was showing. He's tweeting he's playing still at home. Glad to see that Anton Linder-Brown, rather than that they've made some changes at centre, made some adjustments. But they have kept faith with Havili. I think Havili is their future at 12. I think he's got learning to do at this level. And so to have him line out again. He lost last week, and as they say, it doesn't mean you have to like it. You can go out and try and get one up this time. And if they manage to get a few more things right, ruck clearance, guys like Jacobson coming into that make an impact like that, and then guys like Weber clearing rucks, then you could find Havili with front football and a bit of space could do more damage than he did last week. For sure, and he's got a new partner this week in Linder-Brown. They've shaken up their team a little bit to new wingers. They've gone with Rico and Sever Reese. Will Jordan rested for this week, and then Jordy Barrett still retaining his position at fullback. Rico and a bit more space on the wing, and a hungry Sever Reese coming in definitely adds something to the squad, and their bench has a bit of impact too. I mean, in Sofo Aumua, George Bauer and Ofatunga Fassi, they actually have a bench front row that's set to make an impact that could be comparable. Certainly they're going to be confident in those guys to come on and take on and go what the Boks are offering with all of those. I mean, Aumua is going to be explosive off the bench in the loose, and Bauer and Tuanga Fassi are probably their best scrummagers in their respective position.
Yeah.
So that is a decent bit of
that's
impact.
probably a response to what the Boks are doing in terms of what happened last week. They're making some adjustments, and you can see that in their selection. Tui Pilatu covering lock is another big hefty yoke to be chucking in. Good impact. Ethan Blackadder, as you said, good enough for the number 20 jersey. And then on the bench in the back line, you have TJ Perenara, Richie Mo'unga, and Damien McKenzie. That is serious dynamism.
Biggest point of discrepancy between the two sides is the back substitutes.
3 back substitutes each. And how much each are trusted. We saw Quinn Tupaia last week with that great game-winning steal for them. He's now out this week in favour of guys like Richie Mo'unga, who they also have faith in, and he will come in and feature. Like, they will use those guys on the bench. It's a horses for courses case, because both of these sides have ridiculous depth. As we were billing last week, it's like two apex predators in their respective styles. You have the bludgeoning Springboks and the free-flowing All Blacks, and that kind of clash meets here, but you never get as high a quality game of rugby as when these two guys meet, or these two teams meet. It's just going to be awesome. Yeah, absolutely. To look at the game from the point of view of the two sides, obviously we're going to start with the allegedly home team, which is the Springboks. And obviously they're a little bit rocked and reeling after that. They were really stung by that. I know there were a few Springbok fans who were absolutely gutted the morning of, because they felt, they should have won the game. They dominated to winning a game of rugby and not quite getting there. It's always frustrating.
It is, and then they did mismanage the dying moments of the game.
They did.
But there's definitely points of encouragement. I think certainly if Lou Diager can hold his fitness, he's struggled at times to go 80 minutes, Lou Diager, but his work at the line out was game changing. That needs to be an area that they're hungry, that they're attacking
from minute one.
And their defence needs to eat the All Blacks alive, and it's all about sort of their physicality is there, so bringing that energy is really important, and they know to expect a form of an All Black lash. It's not quite the same thing as if they actually beat them, but the All Blacks will come back hungrier.
Well, there's a few changes in there. Grand Slam. There's plenty of motivation for both teams, to be fair.
They just know they can be better, and they're going to be a little bit more explosive, and the Boks are going to have to meet that again with physicality and speed on defence. Some of the more concerning shots. The wide shot of that Will Jordan try at the beginning, and this was after 2.5 minutes of open play, but after Cody Taylor cuts the line, and first of all, like a pass goes miles to deck. He scoops back, runs back and scoops it up, and then he does beat about 3 or 4 players before he's gone through the line, and it's pretty ugly from a Springbok point of view after 2.5 minutes that their players are all kind of flailing, and then the broadcast cuts to a wide shot from deep, and you can just see Will Jordan hair past everyone on that Springboks team to run that tracking line, and that speed differential is real, and especially after a couple of minutes of ball and play time, it's scary.
So they do slow down. They need to get the ball out, and they did a great job from that moment on of arresting that. Guys went down. You have Etzebeth goes down. That we've seen a lot was made of Razzie Erasmus, but I keep noticing that physio that they keep having, because she's always on. She's always popping onto the pitch, rubbing one of the lads or giving some padding or something. It's like every break and play they're down, and and Foster was asked about as well. He's like, I'm sure it's a tactic, but it's one that they have to expect in the All Blacks. But it's definitely, from a Bok point of view, you gotta do it. it's unequivocally there. The speed difference is there already in terms of the back lines and how they stack up. So if you couple that with the fact that if you go an extra few minutes in this Australian air, then you start puffing and blowing and getting a little raggedy. They need to manage to arrest control of the tempo of the game, and it starts really at set piece and breakdown. You're right to highlight Diager stealing their ball from source. If you can upset the All Blacks from source, it goes a long way to upsetting their whole rhythm, and they end up changing their tactics at set piece, and then they're a little narrower and it's tougher and it's easier to defend if you're a Springbok. But also the breakdown, that was the big point of difference. The startling frequency with which they were able to generate those turnovers, particularly in the second half, they should have been doing a lot more with them.
Indeed, and the All Blacks kind of leave it there for them. They try and run tracking lines, and if you can hunt them down and stop them before they break the line, there is a moment to go for the ball, and they're all game for that.
They are, and they're all physical enough to execute it. Even Faf and Pollard will grab one if it's there. They can both. They were bossing that breakdown battle last week.
And if it starts in the centre, that's the key. If they can stop the All Blacks from having any capacity to sit them down in the midfield on multi-phase, the All Blacks probably will try and go wide before they do anything else, and that's where the Boks can go eat. There was one very interesting play towards the tail end of the half, obviously the one that Nkosi puts his hand out and blocks the ball and gets himself carded, and it's a negative play, and you think just before half time, geez, they could really be made to pay for that, and they do a great job of preventing that from happening and keeping in the game by not conceding a try during that period. But like it's actually an interesting example of what the potential of the Bok defence is and how the defensive tries can come about, because the All Blacks did a lot of sort of loud work in the midfield in that play, and Am ended up having more or less 3 players covered in one moment.
Yeah.
And he's also flying out of the line. And if Nkosi could have just read the play a little bit better, and come out and got into the passing lane, the All Blacks were actually going to be in a pretty uncomfortable position. Beauden Barrett was going to have maybe no one to work with, or try like a miracle basketball
or
pass,
take a contact from Am who's up in his face.
Indeed, and that's kind of the potential of the Bok defense. And you saw it play out in 2018. But just if they can sort of if Nkosi can follow Am's lead, and the wide winger read the play a little bit better when they're flying up and get into those passing lanes, and maybe forcing out of an off balance, off kilter All Black team to make it a poor play, that is there could be a pick there for them, and that's definitely the picture for them. Shutting down the midfield forces the All Blacks to gamble a little bit more.
Yeah,
and
they do. They tend to try and pull that trigger because they want to play ball out wide. So yeah, there's definitely scope for it. It does mean Nkosi probably holding it a little bit wider in terms of his alignment, but then as you say, shooting up into the passing lane with a bit more time and space rather than coming in on the tackle.
Yeah, well, he ended up in that particular play. He ended up shooting on a guy who Am had.
Yeah,
and that was a mistake.
Yeah,
Am actually had the midfield sorted.
Yeah,
and Nkosi just needed to get into the passing lane on the outside and force something goofy out of an under pressure Barrett, who might try like an ill-advised grubber but realise before long he doesn't have the time because Am's in his face, or try a loopy pass but realise he doesn't have the time because Am's in his face, or take a contact because Am is in his face.
Yes,
and like that's like Am obviously is the king of that defence and the leader of it, but if
Delinde was putting his hand up last week
Delinde can make Am shine,
and
Am can become irrelevant if Delinde doesn't function, because Delinde, the whole genius of Am works when you can shut down the inside of the midfield and then pull all kinds of trickery to stop teams from getting outside you.
Yeah,
like the Wallabies didn't become a factor because Karevi was just doing so much on the line. Like Am couldn't control the game because Karevi was just all
sitting
over
down on the inside.
Yeah, and Valentini and these guys, and guys that obviously can't happen.
Position did not work. Yeah, and they've not gone back to it. Quagga did a much better job of tidying up that inside line to allow Dale Inde to just be that rock, and he was all up in pressuring Havili and trying to get on top of him like they did last week will go a long way to making this contest very competitive and kind of making the All Blacks doubt themselves. And then, as you say, defensive tries, turnover tries, a good source of Springbok scores. And besides that, I don't think we will see too much deviation. Much as people were decrying the Springbok way of playing the game, we will still see the Springboks playing the game, or attempting to play the game their way for the most part. They will kick to contest, they will kick to smash you when you manage to retrieve the ball, they will rain down bombs with the hope of creating kind of chaotic opportunities. They'll also shoot up in the line and try and create defensive turnover ones. They'll be a hound at the breakdown, they will be a nightmare at the scrum if they can at all, and they will try and get their maul going. We know all of this is what to expect from them, but their question marks are a little bit more macro than that. It's like, is that enough? We did lots of that last week. Is there a case for them, kind of as Eddie O'Sullivan's put it before when criticising Ireland actually in the last few years, is there a case of playing so much rugby and kind of dictating so much in terms of the game, but just never backing yourselves and pulling the trigger, never having a strike move or two off the midfield or off a midfield line out that they can maybe go to? And they did try a few of them against the Wallabies and they just weren't slick enough to execute.
That's kind of my thought, is that, honestly, watching them like that, what's interesting this week is that the criticism of the Bok game plan has not come from outside, it's come from inside South Africa.
Most part. Well, actually, John Kerwin was whinging about
it. But I mean, a lot of the criticism this week has come from frustrated South African fans just thinking maybe this isn't the way to win anymore. And it's a broader conversation I think we'll have next week in more depth when we have the full context of the championship to look back on. But I do think that, I don't actually necessarily think that the problem was not taking shots when they were there.
So it was not executing.
Yeah, I mean, I think they tried to move the ball at times over the course of the last number of weeks, and
including last week
hasn't been great. I mean, really, the problem from an offensive point of view is the kind of the inevitability of that Mostert drop at the end of the game, and it's not that it was inevitable that Mostert was going to drop it; it was just inevitable that somebody was going to drop it. Yeah, that something was going to go wrong. And it's really between all of them at the moment. There's no... Am and Delindi don't work off one another. The general skill and, you know, the quality of pass, the quality of catch, the quality of line hitting.
Shape.
It's not really there, and it's not really what they're doing. And you know, you can point to that as a macro problem. I don't think it's something that they're going to adjust in a week ahead of playing the All Blacks. I think there's a legitimate concern that they're not making pressure turn into points a little more. And I think there are realistic ways you can answer that question. How does the Springbok team get tries? Defense, bomb kicks and mauls.
Yeah, we saw one of those last week.
We saw the bomb. We didn't see them a maul. We didn't see them try a maul. Maybe there's a case
maybe
for
you have to kick the corner.
You have to kick the corner. Exactly right. You know, maybe backing the defense to the point where you're thinking you're going to win the game with threes is just a little naive against a team like the All Blacks, especially on
a
this
track like this.
Yeah,
in Queensland or in the Gold Coast or at Seabus Super Stadium as we are this week. It's all going to be
well,
dry.
You know,
it's all going to be.
You know they're going to be better than they were last week. This week, maybe this is the week to kick the corners. Maybe they're going to need to take a few more risks on defense and really try and go for those turnover tries and those defensive pressure tries. That's kind of a more likely adjustment in terms of adding points to the board than the idea of them, you know, taking a midfield line out and striking off the top of it and going for multi-phase and playing the All Black defense into the game against their pretty clunky offense.
Yeah, and the All Black, as we've been saying as well, like for all that we do blow big up the Springbok defense because it is revolutionary, and over the last few years it's been kind of a phenomenon in terms of how well they've been able to smother teams out, and even last week they kept the All Blacks down in terms of the amount of tries they've been scoring. But it's not all defense, and like the All Black defense themselves have been very, very impressive. I don't know if I just don't think the Springboks have the skill set, the prerequisite skill set it will take to unpick them in that kind of style of game. So what you will see is more of a...
They're not going to win a shootout.
No, they're not. They're not in Australia. No, they're going to have to do something similar to what they did last week, as we've been saying. Control that tempo. Be devils in the contact and in the breakdown and in the set piece. Try and upset all of that rhythm. Try and frustrate those Wallaby fans and All Black fans who are in the crowd, hoping for running open footy. Deny them all of that. Try and make it a set piece to a penalty to set piece kind of game. And as you say, maybe back yourself one or two more times. Maybe their version of pulling the trigger is going to that corner. Yeah. And another source of it is if there's going to be kicking duels, as there were at the beginning of as there was at the beginning of the game, that ultimately led to Will Jordan's try. If they can flip that on his head and manage to catch them off. It also
led to the Nkosi try. You know?
It did. This is it. But if you can dial in a 50-22, I feel like we haven't seen a lot of them in the Rugby Championship. I think the Six Nations, we will see much more of it, more teams, more game to go for them than we have so far.
Depending on what adjustments defenses make between now and then.
This is all true, but I think of all the teams in this Rugby Championship, it's the Springboks are the ones that you would be thinking should be dialing in that as an attacking weapon. I think it would be a huge resource for them given the strength of their maul and their line-out drive and the confidence in it. So if they're going to engage in that kind of kicking game, which they are, maybe try and dial in the kick for grass, kick for 50-22's approach, as opposed to just, as you were highlighting, like some of those fatigue-laden kicks that are just
those are the ones.
away.
Like I don't mind. They do kick to contest a lot. It's a try generator for them. I don't mind them so much as I mind the chips, the little chips off turnover a lot of the time. Just
brainless.
They're
just
a little lazy.
Kicks.
At times they can be great. Like Faf has a great. We've just turned over the ball from a box kick. Their winger's up. We've got to kick this instantly and find a corner.
Or
that's
little
fine.
Rubber in for Am's try in the Wallaby test. Little clever kicks like that heads up footy. But
a lot of the time he just picks it up and leathers it and doesn't look where the space is and gives the ball away. And there's only so many times you get away with doing that. So definitely kick better is just, regardless of whether it's 50-22s, but just taking those little chip kicks out of the game and just kicking better and kicking with a little more deception, just adding a second option, a second dimension, maybe a Delindi carry before you kick to sit down the defense and give your out half a little more room.
Kicking front foot ball much better than kicking slow nothing ball, because the All Blacks will turn that into like a sparkling counter attack very quickly, as they did see. They were warned. There was a warning shot in the beginning that it was a 7-point lead that ultimately they lost the game by 2. That's not the game they need to play.
No, indeed. And listen, that all of the tactical adjustments in the world won't matter a jolt if they don't bring the energy levels and the physicality that they brought last week, because they'll need that in spades, because the All Blacks will be coming at them with all guns blazing.
It's true.
This is going to be a better version of this great All Black team that they play this week, and it's from their point of view, It's an exciting challenge, isn't it?
It is. It's a massive challenge, and I think there'll be a few. It's a matter of adjustments for them. They won't be throwing the playbook at all. Sure, as we said, they have a load of work-ons, and yet they won last week. They're going for a Grand Slam. They're in a great position where they've already secured the tournament with a week left to play, so they're happy out. But in terms of this contest now, and in terms of facing this Springboks, and if you're going to get it done, like the Grand Slam is a tough thing to do, and you have a Springbok team that are prickly, that are defiantly not going to want to go 4 in a row in terms of L's, so they will be coming for them, and their first port of call has to be fix their offensive breakdown. Mind the pill in the offensive breakdown. It's obviously it's one of their great strengths that they run tracking lines and support lines that with the ambition of getting the offload there and getting their hands free and managing to pick them apart that way. But the net result towards the end of that game was just, like, particularly the last quarter in general, and even that period over half time when they were looking to score their obligatory try, they were getting snuffed out because the Boks were all over them at every second ruck. They were getting hands in and slowing it down or turning it over, and it's like your offense will never purr while that is the tempo of ball that you're dealing with, or that's the quality of ball that you're dealing with.
Yeah, I mean, it towards the tail end as well. Like, it was funny that the way that Quinn Tupaia turnover came about was that they actually recovered a poor kick from Pollard, and then in an attempted offload it was batted back by Nkosi, and then the Springboks gathered it, and then there came the turnover. And I was like, gee, if that ball had gone into the breakdown with an All Black carrying it would have been just as likely to be a turnover the other way. Sometimes towards the tail end of these long sequences, you're nearly better off not having the ball than having it. And just in little moments, when if their Springboks are around, there's certainly no harm in dropping it on the toe, putting little chaotic infield kicks when you're not being punished on the kickback, and it's a chance to apply pressure and keep the ball alive. It's just important that you don't kick it too deep and allow them to go to the 22 and kick it out for a line out, and then put pressure on your line out, and then you're slow again. Like, once you've generated the chaos play, the All Blacks are always going to be looking to score, but little kicks in behind to keep the ball in field and just shy of their 22, when you know that there's not much punishment coming back, could allow you to work in your own defence and your own sort of turnover plays.
Don't play the Springbok strengths into the game quite so much as they were by the end.
And just keep it alive, keep them running, keep them turning. And little infield kicks, I think certainly are a worthy adjustment. In the likes of Bowden Barrett can of course dial them in on the chaos plays, because they are going to have to find ways to deal with what is a very good Springbok defence.
True.
And the easy thing, and if this happens they'll be laughing, there's no major adjustments to make, is to bust them up on the inside, as the Wallabies showed, as we were talking about praying for the Lions to do, is to isolate that little bit of space in and around the 12 channel, overload Del Indy a little bit, get an offload
down
here.
Pollard if he finds himself
exactly. Get back rowers and your most explosive dynamic ball carriers into that channel. Like Anton Leonard-Brown coming in is going to have a major job in there.
But similarly, Sevilla can charge down that like a bull as well.
Ioane, absolutely.
All of these guys.
And linking off.
If you don't like the matchup of Havili and Dale Indy, which I don't think they necessarily do physicality wise.
It didn't look good last week.
No, but if you want the first job done, you can even send Khaleesi down. They were putting him in the midfield carry role for a few of them last week. Khaleesi. I'm saying sit Khaleesi down in terms of the out wide, and then try and just overload that channel first, and then go flash it wide. Like, they need a little bit more in general. From all of that in terms of setting things up off their line out. They were so poor last week, mainly because they were a bit shell shocked, and you saw it with Brodie Retallick giving away little cheap penalties. Like, he gave away a kind of obstruction penalty on his opposite man that was needless under a kick thing, but it was born of line out pressure, things not quite starting.
The whole unit, Joe Moody was getting the Moody blues as well. Just all over. They were a little bit rocked, a little bit shell shocked, a little bit out muscled in those tight areas, and I would count the midfield as part of that. But that's absolutely an area that they'll have to get on top of, just not allowing the Boks to dominate the collision area so much. It makes all the counter-rucking and all of the defensive pressure that the Boks want to put you under a lot more difficult if you can explosively get through them in that midfield, in that little soft area in and around the 10 channel, which I'm not sure that the Boks have corrected so much as they couldn't find with David Havili last week.
No, there was a combination of that, and they were jumping at 2 by the end of the first half, and it just meant it's just too wide a pass to try and find
even
that
then
space.
They were going wide of 12. They were
true.
all the All Blacks were going wide of 12 off first phase, and I was just like, that is so wrong.
That
is so wrong. You need someone cutting a really hard angle, trying to attack that Del Indy channel, and preferably someone like a Sever Reese off his wing, with someone with explosive speed, someone like an Ardi Savia either, linking off one another, and finding just a little bit of a half break that just opens up the whole defense, and then from there your skill and your systems are going to just take over.
Then go wide. Yeah, if they succeed in that phase, then the wide option is there, and they can find a bit more space. But they weren't quite isolating it in week one, and as such, they weren't really able to get their starter plays going for the majority of the game. And in fact, they were able to jostle for position enough to get into some kickable penalty ranges, which was ultimately what managed to wrestle the game from the box in the end. But yeah, as far as setting up their own offense, despite the ambition to go wide a few times that they were definitely displaying, they didn't quite manage to earn that right, as is the old adage, by sitting down that defense. And that's why you saw more renewed showings from Am and Dale Inde in the centre role and in the defensive centre role, because the All Blacks were probably a little bit impatient in terms of things were going wrong at source, so we'll go wide, which is probably a little bit backwards, but it's very, very like enthusiastic. It's quite a noble kind of trait in them that if things are a little bit stop-start, we're going to probe out wide and try and find our strike runners. Like, it's a lovely instinct and a lovely courageous instinct that lots of teams don't have. But as you're right to point out, and Karevi is the guy who illustrated it, that is the hard line that sets that up. That first phase of any strike move needs to be built from that, and then there might be a chance to fold. If you just discombobulate and disconnect their midfield, that's when they're more susceptible to being pulled this way and that. And that, coupled with ball in play times being kept high, tempo being kept high, you can see it very
that first 2.5 minutes.
It was a perfect illustration. If they can do more of that, if they can do that for more than 2.5 minutes in the game, they'll be laughing.
They want the Springboks to be puffing and blowing, and once they get the Springboks puffing and blowing and on their heels, turned a little bit, the pitch will open. The
offloads will come,
and it'll become a game of skill sets.
Guys like Aumua off the bench, guys like Mo'unga off the bench could be finding a field day if they've already tuckered those big Springboks out by then. That's when you want guys like Mackenzie coming around the corner.
And then the scoreline blows up and becomes whatever you're taking, whatever you're executing, and the All Blacks, like no other team, can be unrelenting.
As tight a contest as this is on paper, and as much as the Boks dominated large periods of the game last week, if the All Blacks get their game right, there's no reason they can't bonus point win it, even though it's as tight a contest as there is in World Rugby. Just the way they play the game means they're going to score tries when they're hot, and if they're hot at all, they will run it in.
Absolutely, and it's just about finding the tools to unpick that Springbok defense, and then also on the other end of the ball, just being a little bit better at set piece. Obviously, the scrum time they're up against it, but I flagged at the beginning of the preview that I think Oxenche is a little weak. I think Napo Lalala should be looking to hold down that right hand side of the Kiwi scrum, and if they do that, they're going to be in grand stead to just lock that off as an area of intrigue in the game. And likewise the line out, just a couple more adjustments. I mean, Lou Diager took 40 minutes but then got a pretty good read on their calls. They might have to vary it up a little bit, maybe get Luke Jacobson up, get Artie Sevilla up. Just obviously like they'll set piece coaches know better than I what exactly was going on in there in terms of the read that Diager had going on. But a little bit more deception, a few other calls, trusting Cody Taylor to make good throws.
Trusting Brad Weber to get them moving from 9.
They can't just relent and throw to 2 every time. They got to get the jump up on Lou Diager.
It won't work. And win. Actually the Boks just love forcing you into 2. They know all about what those little line-out concessions mean and how much they get buoyed up by it. So if they can kind of strike off a clean ball off 6, I'm sure they've been working that set piece all week. If they can manage to get themselves all the way to the tail of the line-out before peeling off it and then sitting down that inside, if they're patient enough, they will find scores this time. They'll be looking to improve in all areas.
Absolutely. And listen, with all that said, how do you see this one going? Is this a blacklash of kinds, or is this a backlash after the stinging defeat?
I don't know. I'm humming and hawing. I think I know what the favourites tag is. The favourites suggest that the All Blacks will win.
You don't go far in this game betting against the All Blacks.
You don't go far betting against them, and they do look good value for it. The All Blacklash is normally a real thing, although they did win last week, so it's more of a backlash, as you say. I don't know, maybe I do have faith in the Boks to try and make this another dogged affair and dominate us a lot, but...
And there's just something about those big games from the All Black point of view that rarely can they put the bigness of the game out of their head, which is why I think last week was close, but there's a chance that this week, meaning a little less to them perhaps, even though it is for a Grand Slam, but now they have the 100th test won, and they did their, we forgot to mention even at the top of the show, their Capo Pango, and how good that was. Maybe that they'll loosen up and be better, but then on the other end of the coin, the Springbok defense can eat alive the best of them, and We actually didn't mention enough. I know we were talking briefly about Khaleesi there, but we didn't mention even in up until this point just how good he was, which goes to show how many talking points there are from these games. But he was out of this world good. His best performance in a long while. He was excellent, like Hooper-esque in terms of his work rate and his output.
Yeah,
he was absolutely everywhere on the field, and if he can repeat those heroics, then this young All Black offense could come unstuck, and then who knows?
Yeah, that's I'm kind of I'm leaning this way in that. I think I'm going to just say, for argument's sake, that the Boks get it done this week.
Yeah.
I think they win by a point or two in a scrappy one again, and we're treated to 2 back-to-back classics, and the All Blacks get a little bit of dirt in their eye.
What kind of try scoring are we talking about here?
I think we're talking 1 intercept try.
Ooh.
For Mapimpi.
And who throws the pick?
The pick is thrown by maybe Bowden. He's not immune to throwing picks, but maybe himself or Havili under pressure, someone like that.
Wow.
Huge call. I'm gonna say that. It is a huge call. I'm sure the Kiwi fans in the comments are like, "Nah, mate, no."
Yeah, there's a rare enough thing to see you go for the Boks and me not go for the Boks. No, but that is what's happening here. I think the All Blacks. I've a lot of faith in Foster's project, and I think the fact that they were able to dig out the win.
They do look the best.
I think they'll improve. I think they'll improve, and I'm not sure if the Springboks will. And so I think I back the All Blacks to win, probably by a little more, maybe even more than a score.
Going to do them good. Actually, a little tidbit about it was that as of last week, they become the first Test side in World Rugby to reach 17,000 points in Test Rugby. They passed that landmark last week, and if they can keep scoring like that, maybe they'll have too much.
They'll probably get to 20,000 before anyone else reaches the 17 mark.
Indeed. Yeah, they are the top scoring offense. They're high flying All Blacks. They're number 1 in the world now, and they cemented that last week. But can they go one better and complete their Grand Slam in the Rugby Championship? Let us know what you think. Drop your comment down below. Who you got? Are you supporting your Springboks? Are you saying they'll defy it? Or are you going to go with the odds makers and say the All Blacks win in emphatic style?
Either way, it's going to be a juicy contest anyway. Yeah. We're looking forward to this one. Thanks for watching the Overlap Rugby podcast. If you enjoyed that video, please be sure to like and subscribe. And hey, if you have an opinion of your own, if you disagree with what we're saying, leave a comment down below. We might just get back to you.